Yeah, really, really good point, and it's one that I've been making really clearly. I should have said my role as Future Generations Commissioner is I'm independent of government, so my job is to hold government to account on how they deliver against our Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. So, you know, Wales in particular has, you know, we were at the forefront of the last industrial revolution. So the first £1 million cheque for coal was signed in Wales over 100 years ago. So we are acutely conscious of, you know, our responsibility, I suppose, in terms of that damage that's been done to the planet. In terms of our responsibility going forward, so one of our goals, I talked about the 7 wellbeing goals in our legislation, is to be a globally responsible Wales. And that's crucially important. So some of the things, some of the, you know, what is resulting from that, well, for every child born in Wales, a tree gets planted here in Wales, and in Uganda as well. So we have currently planted trees to twice the size of Wales. We have a number of sort of exchange programs. We look at our carbon emissions in terms of the impact that that's having across the world and so on. So I think having you know, something about being a globally responsible nation is a good starting point. And I also think that actually you know, the richer nations who have been responsible for most of the damage shouldn't just be looking to stop the damage now, but they should be actually looking to put right and take their fair share historically of the damage that they've done, and therefore you know, they should be the nations who are doing more of the heavy lifting.
That makes a lot of sense. Liz, did you want to talk about anything from like a sub-national perspective?
Yeah, I think this is really, really important issue, and it's one of the reasons why when we designed the Thriving Places Index, which actually took a huge amount of inspiration for the Happy Planet Index, as Nick and Sam all know, we were really keen that it's designed to say, are we creating the right local conditions for people to thrive, and are we doing that equitably so everyone can thrive, so we're not just making a few, you know, rich people happier as current model likes to do, and are we doing it sustainably so future generations can thrive? And I think it's really important that we don't allow those two other elements to be hidden underneath data, because often if we do a generalized piece of data, you can really, really miss the fact that we're doing this either unbelievably unsustainably or deeply inequitably. So I think we need to make sure that data can be used it can be very, very powerful in the wrong way. And I think so there's the role of equality in there. And I think when we talk about kind of restorative climate justice, we're looking at past, current and future generation justice issues. So there's huge amounts of past injustices which are still hugely affecting the lives of current generations. So we need to be looking at those really embedded inequalities, and how do we use this kind of legislation, this kind of data, this kind of way of thinking, this compass, to really start challenging those unbelievably embedded inequalities that come from many, many generations back, but are 100% real today, as well as looking for that future generation element of making sure that what we're doing is sustainable. And I think a lot of what we've tried to do is make sure that even at a very local level, you can embed the SDGs into whatever work you're doing. They are powerful tools, the SDGs, but they feel very, very out there for local places. You know, people think about their well-being not in terms of their nation. Most people I know don't really care that much about their national well-being statistics because they don't think of themselves in that kind of national context. They really care about what's going on for them locally. So being able to translate some of those big important things like SDGs down to a really local level, I think is really important. Back to my easy and practical thing earlier, sorry, turning it to a scratch record.
No, I mean, well, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm glad that we're reinforcing that. Lorenzo, did you have anything to add?
Very quickly, I think I'd like to reiterate what I said earlier on this issue of restorative justice. I think the indicators can have an impact on many different levels. And I think perhaps the HBI or other indicators may also really speak to those that seek justice, seek more equality at a global level, are claiming a different model in terms of environmental outcomes, social outcomes, and so on and so forth. However, I still think that the power of an indicator is defined by the ability that it has to transform the political system where it's applied, right? So if I get an indicator that Mali will use to claim something vis-a-vis France, I don't think it will go far. I need to get an indicator that can help Mali get better as Mali, right? So otherwise it's going to become one of these tools that are very common among those like us, intellectuals having lived around the world and like having predicated a different development model forever.